Hello, happy afternoon. How are you guys doing? So, I literally just did a post from my business page on Instagram and on Facebook where I spoke about perspective. So, that's what I'd like to chat to you about today. And if you are here with me, please say hi, and then I know that you're out there. And if I'm back. And if you've come back to watch the replay, please let me know. Cool. So, what do I mean by perspective? Whilst doing all my research today, I came across a video on YouTube where the person was speaking about when we are triggered emotionally. And they were saying that basically what happens first is something happens and we have a thought about that. And we assign a meaning to the thought that we have, which then produces an emotion, which produces a physiological response in our body. So that fight or flight, like our nervous system gets triggered, our sympathetic nervous system, and hormones get released into our system, which make us feel a certain way, or our physiological, like our body responds a certain way. And all of that happens not because we had a thought about something that happens, but because of the meaning that we attached to that thought. So I'll give you an example. Okay, so here's an example that happened today. So I bought these little waffle things from Woolies when I did my shop the other day as a treat. And today I put one in the toaster to warm it up. And instead of going nice and crispy, it softened and like disintegrated in the toaster. And when I tried to get it out, it was all like just mushy and bits in the toaster. And I got irrationally angry about it. Like I literally, like, Garth was trying to help me and I was just like, just let it cool down. I'll deal with it once it's cool. I can't right now. I'm too angry right now. And he's like, why are you angry? It's just the toaster. Like, it happens. And I was like, I know that. I said to him, I'm having I think I literally stomped my foot because I was so irritated. And he laughed at me and he was like, why are you stomping your foot? Jeez, like, you know, you must have been such a brat as a child, type of thing. And I said to him, I'm having a complete inner child response to this situation. And me, Kirsty, the life coach and adult, knows that the response I'm having is irrational. But for some reason, this irritating thing has triggered some kind of emotional response in me and it's made me angry. So sometimes the meaning that we give to something is out of our awareness. It's our unconscious, our subconscious mind that is attaching the meaning to the thing that happened. So what happened? Something happened, it was irritating, I had a response to it. Fair enough. The reason I knew it was a deeper thing is that I've got a bit of an inner story about things not going my way. And it's ridiculous because there have been many things that have definitely gone my way in my lifetime. But especially in the last few years with my business, it's taken a while to like get to a point where I'm feeling confident, not about my coaching. I've never questioned my coaching, but more my ability to run a business around my coaching or to attract clients. And so there's been a bit of a story that kind of developed around things never go my way. So when something seemingly inconsequential happens, like a waffle falls apart in a toaster, the meaning that runs deep inside me with stuff like that is I don't get my way, like things don't work out. And that makes me irrationally angry. But that all happened out of my awareness. So how do we get out of that? How do we stop having these like seemingly irrational emotional responses to things that are really like not that important? Like it really doesn't matter that my thing fell apart in the toaster. And by the way that I governed myself in that moment is I recognized I was feeling irrationally angry and I said, I will come back to this. I will come back and deal with it, which I remember I haven't actually yet. I need to go fish the bits of waffle out of the toaster. But I said to Garth, please leave it. I will come back once I've calmed down. And I walked away from the situation and I took a deep breath. And that's how I regulated myself because I recognized that there was a deeper emotional response going on to this really silly situation. So how is this useful to you? When you notice yourself having those physiological responses, so heart rate increases or you get angry, like where do you feel anger in your body? Or sadness or fear or happiness for that matter. But I mean, we wouldn't have a problem if we were feeling happy. So unfortunately, let's focus on the stuff that doesn't feel so good. But where do you feel that stuff in your body? Because that's how you identify, oh, that's the emotion I'm experiencing right now. And a lot of us don't know what we're feeling sometimes. Like we know we're having a response, but we can't even identify what that is. We've become so dissociated. And so the first step, of course, is awareness. Awareness that something is happening and it doesn't feel good. And what is that thing? What is that feeling that we're having? So in my case, it was anger. So I noticed, I'm not just irritated right now, I'm flipping angry. So I felt that in my body and know what anger feels like to me, and I could see myself kind of going off on the anger tangent. I didn't want to just react and snap at Garth or throw my plate across the room or whatever irrational thing I might have wanted to do. Rather than acting out, I took a breath and I said, I will come back to this later. I'm having a response. So I had this almost like detached kind of perspective on what was happening. And so step one is awareness. Step two is observe what's going on, but from almost like a third party perspective. So it's almost like I stepped outside of myself and I recognized what was happening. I observed it without any judgment whatsoever. I just said, oh, I'm having an inner child stomp right now. Like my inner child is throwing a tantrum. I can see that that is happening, and that's okay. I will come back and deal with this when I'm feeling back in my adult body again. So I just observed what was happening and I recognized it. And step three is go do something to change your state. So I walked away and that helped. I took a deep breath. That really helped. Like, I cannot emphasize enough how important deep breaths are. That's why whenever I start a meditation, you might have noticed in the mornings, we do deep belly breaths. And I always say you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, which triggers your vagus nerve, which triggers your parasympathetic nervous system. Gosh, I get those confused all the time. But the one that is rest and digest, the one that takes you out of the fear response or out of the fight or flight. So doing breaths like that helps you get into a calmer state. Doing deep belly breaths, same thing. It helps you get into that calmer state. So I cannot emphasize enough how useful breathing is, like deep breathing, proper breathing. So do something to change your state. Walk away, take a breath, go create something, journal, get everything out on paper. If someone doesn't mind you venting to them, vent to them. But be very careful about doing that regularly, because you can very quickly form an association in your mind that that person is associated with these unpleasant feelings that you're experiencing. So careful with that. It's a slippery slope. But if you do have someone that you know you can, like my sister, for example, I know I can vent to her about anything, and I'll send her a voice note, and I will start the voice note by going, I need to vent about this. You don't even have to listen to this message. Here I go. And then I vent. And, so do something to change your state, to start feeling better, to like pivot, to disrupt, to break the momentum of the moment, and allow your body to get out of that like kind of state. That sympathetic nervous system, I believe, is the correct word. So yeah, breathing is really helpful for that. So I hope that makes sense. So it's all about your perspective, because remember, like I said in the beginning, it's not about the thing that happened, it's about the meaning that you assign to the thing that happened. So if you can change the meaning, if you can detach yourself from the story that you're telling yourself, in my case, things never work out. If I can detach myself from that and say, hey, that's not true. It feels that way because I've thought that to myself often enough that it's become truth, but it's not actual truth. Let me become a third-party observer of that story, and then let me go focus on something else which feels good, so that I can show myself it's not true. It's just a thought I keep thinking, which has created a meaning around it. Does that make sense? Let me know. What are some of the inner stories that you face that don't actually make sense and yet you keep telling yourself? Because remember, with awareness comes the ability to see what those stories are. So the waffle breaking in the toaster and me having a shit fit about that, there was that hidden step in the middle, which was my inner story being triggered. But if I didn't know myself the way that I do, I could have just flown off the handle and acted out without any kind of awareness that the meaning I was, assigning to this moment was archaic. Like it had nothing to do with what was actually happening. So my brain saw the moment and caused me to respond as if it were, a situation where things never work out. Does that make sense? Let me know. I hope it does. I'll just hang on for another minute to see if there's any questions or comments. Otherwise, I'm gonna head off. But I hope that this has been helpful. So just remember in moments like that, and it's not about judging yourself. Definitely not about judging yourself. It's about having awareness. Something's happening here. It's about observing your thoughts, so trying to figure out what is happening here, and realizing that it's not truth. It's not what you think is happening. It's something completely different. A waffle is getting stuck in a toaster. That is what's happening. Is it true that things never work out for me? Good God, no. All right? So become an observer of that inner story and realize it's not true. And then 3, go stop the momentum. Take an action to change your state and to get into a better feeling place. Because then you are empowered to make a choice about how to respond. Instead of lashing out, like I said, and shouting at Garth, who was really trying to help me, or throwing my plate on the floor and having a proper tantrum, instead of behaving in a way that I would feel really bad about afterwards, because inevitably whenever we act out, we feel a lot of shame afterwards. So rather than do that, if you follow these steps, you're much better positioned and empowered to decide, this is how I want to behave instead. I'm going to walk away and I'm going to laugh at myself because I can see that this reaction is totally disproportionate to the situation. And that's just one example. I'm sure that we could go through tons of examples when it might feel like the emotion that you're having is justified by what's happening. And in those types of situations, I urge you, follow the steps as well, because again, it's, the situation itself might be hurtful, but it's only hurtful because you are believing that it is hurtful. So if you can start changing that narrative in your head, start changing the meaning that you assign to things, start changing your perspective, and realize if someone's trying to hurt you, it's not because they're trying to hurt you. It's because they are hurting. Have compassion, have empathy, get a much broader meta perspective and change the meaning. And suddenly it's not so hurtful anymore. It's all about them. It's not about you. It really helps. But it's very hard to do that when you're being triggered emotionally and you're having these physiological responses and you're just caught up in the moment and you're reacting by default. So it's really about that pause, that practicing the pause. Really, really helpful. And the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to finish off, is it's quite hard to remember to do the stuff when you're in the moment. So certainly challenge yourself to do the stuff outside of the moment. So cultivate a practice of awareness. Observe yourself, for 1 minute a day and move it up from then. Come do the meditations in the morning with me. Whether you do them live or whether you watch the replay, give yourself that time to be quiet, to practice deep breathing, to simply observe your thoughts, to become aware of, how you feel in your body, and that type of thing. So cultivate that practice outside of those triggering moments so that when you are feeling triggered, you can lean on those practices much easier and with much more grace than if you haven't cultivated them. Cool. That is my truth bomb for today. So I hope that this has been useful. If you'd like to comment, please drop a comment and then I know what you're thinking. All right, thank you so much. I'm sending you lots of love. Cool. Bye, guys.